All right, we now bring in a recurring guest. The U.S. men's national team and Bochum legend Eric Wynalda is back on the show. He was on a couple weeks ago, post World Cup, talking United States men's national team, and we have some news throughout the soccer world right now, with obviously with Europe getting back in the full swing of things, Premier League back together. Eric, let's start off here. Obviously, Christian Pulisic has had an injury setback at Chelsea. It looked like he was going to potentially, or at least wanted to, make a January move to some other club. Now he's injured. He's staying at Chelsea. And Chelsea, it seems like they don't have a plan right now. Like they just went and spent 100 million on Mudryk, who is a really good winger, but they already have 7 or 8 of them. They've already dropped 65 million on Nkunku coming in. They just brought in João Felix on loan. So my first question is, I don't know if you know Todd Bowley or if you know anybody at Chelsea of, inner workings there. What seems to be the plan there? And I'm guessing this means Pulisic is probably going to be on his way out this summer.
Have you ever dropped water on top of an anthill and then watched what happens? That's Chelsea right now. This is a bunch of people running around trying to figure out what the hell do we do. Everybody's hurt. We need to figure out how to get out of 10th place. You can't really assess it because Aubameyang is out to lunch. Pulisic is now hurt. João Felix comes in, and as well as he was playing, he gets himself thrown out. He's going to be the most expensive player in the history. It's like $1 million a game now.
Mm-hmm.
Now with Mudryk coming in, which was kind of it just screams good business from Arsenal to just say no. We have a good feel in this team. Things are going extremely well. We're not going to hit a panic button and buy. Everything about Chelsea right now screams panic. And Mudryk is as good as he is. 8.5 years, guys. 8.5 year. What is this thing? Is this Major League Baseball? I mean,
I don't know.
What is this, Alex Rodriguez? Or
it's the only way they were going to get him, I think.
Mookie Betts. I mean, you got to give this agent a lot of credit because he pushed in forever. He's basically hit the home run, and he'll never have to work again. But at the same token, Chelsea is got to figure out what they want to do. We're now hearing that Sterling might be on the move, which is an interesting piece. Newcastle has now reached out and said that Ziyech might be a good option, and Gallagher as well. So there's a lot of moving parts there. They're basically just the anthill with a bunch of people running around trying to figure out how the hell do we fix this. And every time they build their house of cards, it falls down, and they try all over again. The biggest problem they have, though, guys, is this is no longer a Roman Abramovich team. It's not about win now. It's about, oh, it's okay. You can figure it out. You got this week, maybe next month, maybe next year we'll figure this out. And the Chelsea fans are just not buying it. They want wins. They want it now. And Bully's figuring out that he's bit off way more than he can chew.
And here's what I don't get is that, we love Graham Potter on this podcast. We are huge Brighton fans of what he did at Brighton. And we thought the move to Chelsea was going to be amazing for Chelsea because he is a really good manager. But much like with his Brighton teams, it took a lot of time for him to get them to the point where they're very good. And he brought his entire recruitment staff over with him from Brighton, all of his coaches and everything. And it just seems like right now, all of those guys are just getting completely overruled. And it's just like, let's just spend on who the hot name is right now. But something me and Anthony have been talking about for a long time is Chelsea's midfield just flat out is getting overrun right now. And they just clearly are not addressing it. And now with all these injuries they have, it's Jorginho and it's Kovacic. And that's it for them right now. They don't have anything else. And they just keep buying wingers. And now they're just stacking them up. So yeah, I don't really know what's happening at Chelsea right now. I mean, those seem to be the problems. I hope this doesn't mean they're going to sack Graham Potter, even though it is a bad run, because I think that would be a big time mistake. But yeah, if Pulisic was going to move, where do you think he'd go?
Well, I mean, there was a couple of Italian rumors, and then Newcastle was a part of that. I believe the Gallagher and Ziyech rumors now because I was hearing that about Newcastle with Pulisic a month ago, at least before he got hurt. I mean, when you started describing that, you realize if you didn't say it, you could have been describing Liverpool. It was the same problem, and it's the two teams, 9th and 10th. Now, I'm going to argue with you a little bit about Potter. Potter is a manager that is not suited for Chelsea. He's here's the best way I can put it. If he ever says to his players, well, he probably will never say to his Chelsea players, "Hey, that's not good enough in training," because he doesn't know what good enough looks like. He's seen a middle tier team, and he's made the most out of a Brighton, which was starting to push. They got up to 6th, and it was very cool. It's a cool story. Great players who are on the ascendancy. But now when you have players at the top level, I don't think he has the ability to manage those guys, and he doesn't know how to. He doesn't have the personality. He's not Jose Mourinho. He's not Conte. Okay, he's just not. He's not Ancelotti. And that's what Chelsea has always represented. I love his story. I think it's awesome. We all kind of were rooting for a Mainz to Dortmund to Liverpool, a English version of Jurgen Klopp, but he's not. He's not. He looks like him, except for the big bags under his eyes right now. Can't figure this out. But the fact that he brought his staff, that he brought a bunch of people that were middle tier, is the reason why he's going to stay middle tier until he fixes that. I'm sorry if I'm blowing up your.
No, you're fine. No, hey, a healthy argument.
Graham's not above criticism.
Yeah, nobody's above criticism, and again, we've loved Potter for a long time because of what he's done in Brighton. Obviously, since it's the betting podcast.
I love him too. No, don't get me wrong. I love him too. He's just not suited for Chelsea.
Maybe he's not. Yeah. I mean, the thing is I think maybe if they get through all these injuries and especially get Reece James and Ben Chilwell back, maybe he can start to mold his team into the Brighton teams that we saw.
I hope so. I hope so. But if it turns into Manchester United 3 years ago with Gunnar Solskjaer, then I'll just remind you that I was right.
That's fine.
We talk about midfielders and kind of the problems. Liverpool is short on midfield right now. They're looking old. Chelsea everybody's injured. The one smart signing they did make seemingly was Zakaria, and then now he's injured. All these teams, whether it's, Man United lacking depth, Spurs, even midfield has come into question and under fire lately. Tyler Adams is having a great season at Leeds, and he followed up the great World Cup. Adams was the U.S. Men's National Team Player of the Year. Is there like a realistic possibility that Adams is moving up beyond Leeds anytime soon? Like, what are you hearing about him, and how has he kind of taken the U.S. Men's National Team to be his own, in a way? Whereas, in the past it was always Pulisic's team. Now, do you think it's kind of Adams as the leader?
I actually think he won us all over with that Iran press conference. To be honest with you, when he took some loaded questions and he turned it around and he showed what a leader looks like. But his on the field stuff has been pretty good. We'd be remiss if we didn't say, hey, he's already won the German Cup with Leipzig. That was a big deal. People don't realize that's a big deal. It's a very big deal. Leipzig actually has Bayern this weekend. I'm going to be watching that one as well. But his pathway to where he is now it doesn't surprise the people that have been paying attention. The Tab Ramos of the world that coached him at the U20s and people that have known him. He's been breaking records as far as the metrics and all the studies and the science for a good 8 years straight. Because the sport has become so metrics centric right now, and when you look at the real numbers and the people that are assessing players these days, like a guy like Robertson, how he got to Liverpool, if you tell that metrics story, it's because he covers more ground than anybody and he got forward more than anybody else, and Klopp bought him on that reasoning alone. It might be the same thing with someone like Tyler, because is he the best player in the world? No. Does he cover more ground than just about everybody? Yes. Is he completely ready for a big club? Probably not. But when we get to the summer and Leeds stays in, if Jesse Marsch keeps his job, they were great today, scoring 5 goals against a lower division team. But there's a lot on the bone there. I think that Tyler Adams has a wonderful future. I just don't know if it's immediate. I think it might be too much for him right now to make that jump. Get through the end of this season and let the bidders come calling. I think McKennie also falls into that same spot, though. Weston McKennie is an electric guy. He's got an unbelievable personality. He loves trouble, if you haven't noticed, whether that be at Juventus throwing parties with Dybala or getting in trouble with the U.S. team for inviting girls to his room. That's what happened. The reality is that he's a little bit just a fun guy, but he's also an amazing player, and he might be right on the coattails of Tyler Adams. But both of them will be ready eventually for a big EPL team. But who's to say Juventus isn't one of the biggest teams or biggest clubs in the world? So I would put McKennie also in that conversation.
Let's talk about the other midfielder in that trio. Yunus Musah won the Young Player of the Year for the United States men's national team. I mean, his development has been great, obviously, with the national team, and he's been really, really good with Valencia as well. Actually, I think he's been a big part of why, Gattuso has really turned Valencia around from being a relegation type team back into the top 7 or 6 of where they belong in La Liga. What have you seen from his development going forward and what he's able to do on the pitch? And also, are you hearing anything on any moves maybe he might potentially be making over to England or some other club across Europe?
I'm hearing big summer move and nothing immediate. And Gattuso is the kind of guy you just don't want to piss off.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Anybody out there, just Google him and you can figure out why.
he sees Yunus as a really vital component to keeping his own job. And so in that regard, I think that Gattuso would love to champion a move in the summer. I'm hearing big clubs too, really big clubs. So, and I do think England would suit him well. I think he's one of those midfielders who has the ability to run it out of there, not always pass his way out of it. He's strong, even though he's because he's so young. He might not dictate a huge number, but he certainly is a guy that has an immense future. Look at our midfield. I mean, in the U.S. we have Adams, McKennie, Musah, and Gio Reyna. I mean, it's eventually when we figure out that Berhalter was the wrong guy and Gio gets back on the field, I think our team's going to be amazing.
You kind of mentioned analytics and kind of its increasing role. How have you seen that, being adjacent and in touch with people who run soccer teams? We use stuff like expected goals and expected threat and progressive passes and stuff like that a lot on our show, kind of breaking down teams. How have you seen that on the back end kind of impact the sport in the last few years, maybe 10 years?
Well, I think what analytics have really grown up, to be honest. It used to be very simple. It used to be how far did you go? How far did you run? When did you tap out? The ability for our coaches to now have an idea of when that red line is about to hit, so they can manage their substitutions. They can manage guys through the week. They can figure out how to keep them at an optimal level. That's more about what when we deal with science is keeping the athlete at the highest level at all times and understanding when those rest moments need to come. That in that regard, it's been extremely helpful. Sometimes it's very misleading. I think that when we look at passes completed and all this other stuff, I mean, all that stuff so what if you're a left back and you made 67 passes and 64 of them were to the center back and going backwards? That doesn't really help us here. We need to know who the guys that can change games. And I think that's where it gets interesting. And what unfortunately happens with analytics is some coaches get too married to it. And when they do that, they start changing the mentality of their players. Meaning, if you tell a guy, well, you lost the ball 6 times, and we want you to lose the ball 3 times or less, you're going to stop looking for penetrating passes. You're going to stop looking for game-changing moments. And that's what I've seen. I've seen some guys really affected by this, coaches who don't know how to manage it. You still, it's kind of like baseball. But baseball is the same thing. I mean, you got some of these managers who don't make a decision about who's going to bat because all the analytics say, can't be that guy, it's got to be this guy. And you make decisions based on that. Soccer is going in that direction sometimes, but it's really about trying to find, and I think Klopp's done a good job with this, is finding that point where you still trust your eyes, you still trust what you see, and you don't change the mentality of a player that's trying to change the game, not try and just exist within it.
You spoke about Klopp in Liverpool, another team that's actually kind of in a big time struggle right now. The way, I think that they have similar problems with Chelsea. Obviously, they're dealing with a ton of injuries, with Van Dijk being out. But Liverpool, I guess my question is do you think, given the squad they have right now, obviously they just added Gakpo here in January, do they have a squad that can potentially push back up into the top 4? Or is the Liverpool that we've seen from the last 2 years, who has been competing for Premier League titles, is it kind of gone by the wayside?
Look, I mean, how did they do it? They did it with the front 3 of Salah, Firmino, and Mane. Okay, so Firmino is starting to get, as they would say, long in the tooth, and he's still a phenomenal player. Those ideas were Nunez and Diaz. Those were the two guys that were really going to fill that void. I'm still a huge fan of Nunez. I know he's missed. I get it. He's missed more chances than everybody. Even when he scores a great goal, they call it back because he's got a toe offside. I mean, everything that could go wrong has gone wrong for him, but he's still an incredible talent. And I think it's at some point he's going to come good. And I'm kind of waiting for that, because you remember we started the season, it was all like, who's going to be better, Nunez or Haaland? And obviously that question has been answered in 2022. 2023 is going to be different for Nunez. I know he picked up a small injury, but I think Gakpo was going to kind of save the deal. Gakpo is the new Firmino. That's what's happening. That's what they're trying to create. He's not as fast. He's not quick, but he is clever enough to be able to be flanked by Nunez and Salah. And then let's see what that looks like. You got to give it time. Diaz really is the injury that messed him up. I mean, that really was a punch in the stomach. But that midfield is aging. Thiago and Henderson, it's just not what it used to be. And relying on Elliott, you're not going to get far. Great goal the other day, but don't count on that. So I think they're coming in 8th, guys. I think that this is going to be one of those really poor seasons.
Yeah.
And you have to go back and unfortunately remember that Klopp has the 7-year twitch. He had it in Mainz, he had it in Dortmund, and now it's in Liverpool. I don't know why, guys, but every 7 years he has a blip in the screen and it just doesn't go away. So we're right in the middle of it. Live with it, Liverpool fans. You'll be better next year. You're just going to have to deal without the Champions League money.
Yeah, I think the biggest question is kind of, do they get Bellingham? Does that solve kind of the midfield issue? Yeah. And I guess we'll see that in the summer, but they seem to be the front runners.
Right now, right? If you're the Fenway Sports Group, you're selling. Why the hell would you pay somebody for $100 million?
Yeah.
Look, I'm sure the people in Dubai would be happy to spend that money on Bellingham.
There you go. So I mean, and this just speaks volumes of what Dortmund does. I mean, Dortmund has been doing this for the last 8 years, whether it's Jadon Sancho or Dembele or Pulisic or Erling Haaland, or it doesn't matter, on and on and on. They do it every year, and it doesn't surprise anybody that Bellingham out of Dortmund is the highest rated player, or at least the most expensive player on the planet. So no, I don't think he solves the problem. They've been swimming backwards ever since Wijnaldum left. But I do think they need to figure that position out for sure.
You mentioned Dortmund. Bundesliga's back. Very exciting to have it back. It's I always say outside of the Prem, by far my second favorite league to watch. Just always exciting and always goals and excitement. Dortmund getting Sebastian Haller back after he missed the first half of the season with testicular cancer. Back in the team, scored a hat trick in his first debut in the friendly. What are you expecting from Haller, and how does that fix Dortmund in a way where they were struggling for finishing and a true striker in the first half?
See, Haller is kind of where Nunez was last year, but 2 years ago. He's that guy. I mean, he didn't have the best of time at West Ham. I remember going back to his Frankfurt days as well, but he found a home in Holland, and then he blew up. He's going to have another blow up. Modeste is not going to be the problem solver for Dortmund. And I do think that this is going to be special. It's going to be a great story. It was horrible to hear the news. Testicular cancer is something that it's actually quite common, to be honest. But I've heard about it a bunch of times with players and ex-players and friends and whatnot. It is obviously curable. I mean, you can get through it, and he has. But what an amazing soccer player this guy is, and he's got all the pieces around him. So I'm looking for a massive explosion. I think this guy's going to blow it up. I mean, everybody thought that just because he didn't have a lot of success in England that he was kind of found out. That's not true. This guy just he's in the right team at the right time. And a lot of people pulling for him and motivated for him. And it's going to be fun to watch. He might get, I think I'm going to prognosticate 17 in the, what's called the Rückrunde. So I'll give him 17 goals in the second half of the season.
That's quite a few. And with only,
they'd have a chance.
19 matches left. That's quite a few.
I mean, they're a little bit too far behind.
This guy has the potential to blow up, and that's a big number, I know, but he's going to have a couple of hat tricks again in there. And I think they start off with Augsburg, which could be a good start.
I think they're a little too far off Bayern to probably catch them, but
yeah,
Champions League, they get Chelsea, could make a run.
But
that's
nice. Dortmund doesn't care. Dortmund is going to sell Jude Bellingham for 120 million
in the summer, right? We're not saying January, right?
So they will always turn a profit. The way that I don't know how they've managed to convince the Wall and the Dortmund fans that fourth is always okay, but it is okay. It is okay because they continue to have the best business in football. It started with Michel Sorg. He did an amazing job in his time there. He's passed that torch to Sebastian Kew, and they are just very good at finding talent, turning it over. And Jadon Sancho was the first English guy. Shouldn't surprise anybody that Jude Bellingham, and an English guy in a German setup, is going to be the most expensive. You watch, they'll do it again. We don't know who that player is yet, but they're going to find another Dembele and sell him for 90 million and continue to keep rolling. That's how they do things over there.
All right. Final question. A lot of stuff has been going on with the United States men's national team since we last spoke. It seems like Greg Berhalter's on his way out. Who do you think is going to be the next United States men's national team manager if you had to put money on it right now?
Wow. I mean, we know that they made an offer or started a conversation with Zidane. And the only good news in that for American fans is at least we tried. It doesn't mean that the conversation is over. But let's go back a little bit. And then this is where I have a right to be kind of pissed off about it. When I put my spoon in that bowl of shit that was already happening, it was already at full boil. And people in America and our media are so naive about this kind of thing that they would think that I was the one that let the cat out of the bag. That was brewing with Berhalter and the Reina family for a long time. And the fact that it had to come to a head in a World Cup is really quite sad and pathetic. But when the reason why I got angry is because people thought I called Berhalter a liar. Now, just to point out to your viewers, pointing it out when someone lied is very different than calling someone a liar. It just is. And the way that this thing has unfolded has proven that Greg Berhalter has no business managing the national team. He's lost the locker room. He threw a player under the bus. Forget it. It's over. Now, the bigger problem is going to be Ernie Stewart and Brian McBride are the two that are going to be called upon to fix this. I'm going to sound like a disgruntled whatever, but these were ex-teammates of mine. I know them very well, and they are both not the competent people that we need to be making this decision right now. So when you ask me who needs to be the next national team coach, the first thing that needs to happen is Brian McBride and Ernie Stewart need to be removed from the decision-making process because they will not make the appropriate decision. They have drank the Kool-Aid, and I don't know what color it is this month, and they have become a part of a big game of Star Wars, and they are on the dark side. So we don't have a manager until we make an appropriate decision. The more things change, the more they stay the same. U.S. soccer is an absolute joke. So who is it if I had to put money on it? I would have thought maybe Roberto Martinez would have had a chance.
Oh, I don't want to go anywhere near that right now.
I know, but these are the kind of bad decisions we make. So
I let Portugal make that decision.
Right. For me personally, who do I? If we win American, it's easy. It's Jimmy Curtin. It is not Jesse Marsch. Jimmy Curtin would be the one that it would fit within their budget constraints and be a wonderful hire, in my opinion. That might make sense because Ernie Stewart used to work with him in Philadelphia. So let's stay tuned there.
Union.
But I think it will be a foreigner. I do. I know Bielsa looks like he's on his way to Mexico. I think that would have been too crazy for us to hire someone like that. But at the end of the day, it's such an unbelievable big decision. 2026 is everything. And
right.
We got to get this right. And it's not 4 years, it's three and a couple months. So
yeah,
we have to get this right. The guy that's coaching the team right now, Anthony Hudson, is going to take these two games when they've already announced that list today. So it's a lot of guys having their first caps with the team. is clearly not the answer. We know that. He's just a guy that's just a placeholder until we figure this out. But United States Soccer Federation has been infamous for making us wait, and so I don't think I think we're still a month away from a decision, and I'm sure they're interviewing people. But if I'm not putting money on it, but man, if I had my choice, I would be all over Zidane. Zidane would be just, I don't want to say arrogant, but the shot in the arm that we need. No more bullshit. No more family ties. None of this incestual. We hire your buddies. We just need somebody to evaluate our players, pick a team, pick the right players, because we have enough talent out there, and not succumb to the drama that we just had to live through. So I would be in favor of someone like Zidane. That would be, for me, probably the best case scenario. I mean, this is a long conversation probably, but I mean, it still illuminates the idea that Jurgen Klinsmann was doing a good job, by the way.
Yeah.
They got rid of him too quickly.
All right. Thank you very much for your time, Eric. That'll do it for this episode of Wonder Goal. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Make sure to download, rate, subscribe, unsubscribe, subscribe, tell a friend, tell an enemy. Until next time, good luck with your Bundesliga bets in the midweek, and we'll see you all on Thursday morning.